Previously on the Elevate With Us podcast, her name is Gina, and she's here from That One Painter First Coast. How this all came to be was one of those little LinkedIn messages. Yeah, hey, are you interested in franchising? Do you want to learn about it? Should we just look into this? And we were like, what the hell? Let's look into it. And we're not going to say we're going to paint with something that's more expensive and then make it look like we're painting with something that's more expensive, but we've actually poured something different into the can. That happens sometimes too. Do. And so that is how we operate. Everything's super detailed. We're really easy to get a hold of. We use a great software system. So if you have a question, basically it's like a text, but it's a message, goes right to us, and they'll either call you back or they will message you back through there. So communication's ongoing. It's very rare that you won't hear back from us very quickly. Like it's pretty quick. And then on anything but flooring, anything that you walk on, we do have a 3-year warranty. So, if we come out and we paint your house and it's bubbling, for example, oftentimes it's going to be a product issue, not an us issue, but we're going to come back out and we would probably bring our rep from the company. We're going to take care of that. We're not going to charge you for that. That's on us. It's not on anybody, honestly, but us and maybe a failing product. And then once you get your estimate, that's your price. So if we mess up paint quantities and say, oh, shoot, we're like 3 gallons short, we're not going to come back to you and say, hey, you owe us for 3 gallons of paint. It's just done.
That's really nice because that's happened to me personally.
Well, yeah, and it's hard, you've budgeted for this, and sometimes stucco is really dry and it sucks up paint. And sucks up paint. Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
So we had a job not too long ago. It was a really large house, and that particular stucco happened to be really
extra
suck up
dry.
the paint. And so they didn't get a bill for the excess
extra
paint. So
I see.
That's on us. And, it's always a learning process, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, it's more of an art than a science, right?
For sure.
That's amazing. I love that you're super customer focused, and it sounds like you're building a relationship-based business, which in my opinion, leads to the most successful type of business. You're not super transactional. You want to know the person and get to know the reason why and be sure you're providing them a service that aligns with their needs, because obviously if someone calls you and they want their house painted and you go in there and they say it's going to be for sale,
right?
And they're like, hey, my favorite color is purple. So I've always wanted purple walls. Let's paint this eggplant. You're probably going to have a different conversation with them.
Right.
That they'll probably appreciate later. They might be disappointed.
Right.
But
they'll be happy about it later.
They'll be happier about agreeable gray or whatever.
Right.
Neutral,
something
you
that's
guys
neutral. And I think that as far as real estate's concerned, we've done several of those houses where they've been on the market. Don't sell, don't sell, don't sell. They come off. We go in and paint. They go back on, and then they sell. So
Sure.
it's it's a lot of that. Nobody wants to necessarily walk into a house and be like, wow, look at these 18 colors in this house. I have to paint all this, because
They just see this. They just see money.
Mhm.
They just see money they have to spend.
right. And
So what's the timeline on that? Like, let's pretend that, I have a listing. It's not selling. It's got lively colors, or what I call, taste-specific
right.
items
Yes.
in there. Can it be painted within 2 weeks? Is that a 2 to 3 weeks? Is that reason?
Yeah, sometimes it can be the next week. Sometimes it can
Wow.
be, like, we're pretty quick. And
That's amazing.
yeah, and we have a lot of crews for that very reason. And some of our crews work quicker than other crews.
I see.
And so we know who to put on those jobs. Some like to do very specific, they prefer cabinet jobs over interior.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So we have mixtures of and so we can put the right people where they need to be, and we can get in there. We did one house. We were there on a Friday. It was an exterior in Murray Hill. We were there on a Friday doing the estimate. We painted on Monday, and it was done by Wednesday, and it didn't even look like the same house. The realtor had picked out an amazing color scheme. Awesome.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So it's something as simple as that, because obviously if your house is on the market, it's not selling and you're taking it off, you don't have a month to wait for
No,
somebody to
that's
come
why
and
I
paint your
asked
house.
that, because I mean, a lot of realtors listen, and that's important to them because they might have a small local painter that they've used previously that, not there's anything wrong with that, but they might have a 3-week, 4-week window before they can even get there because they're like a one-man crew,
right,
or a 2-man crew or whatever it is. And so in our business, time is really important. Time could almost be money. Right. They could miss out on a hot part of the market or whatever it is. And so knowing that it could be a quick turnaround. Is really important.
That's the benefit. We call it ready to sell, basically, is the program. We'll go in there, paint. We've had some, like, so you've got a bunch of light bulbs out. We'll change the light bulbs.
Because they're so tall.
So we painted someone's house a few weeks ago, and she's like, do you see that light up there? It's been good for 18 years, but 2 of the 3 of the bulbs are out. And I'll change them. I'm like, well, yeah, we'll be up there anyways. So
that's awesome.
Just the little things, switch plates, all that kind of stuff we can help with just to get it going. So you can get it on the market and get it sold.
That's real great. So can we switch gears? Can we talk about your family?
Sure.
'Cause that's how I knew you first, right? Is I got to know your family pretty well. They're pretty remarkable people, but you're a really dedicated person. I would say you don't take no for an answer. Nope. And thank goodness for that, because your kids have benefited from that remarkably. So Gina's kids have Tourette's, or not all of them. It's some of them. Two of the 4.
2 are diagnosed, I should say.
2 are diagnosed with Tourette's, and you have made their progress your priority. You've ensured that they're going to be successful human beings because you're completely dedicated to their success. So kind of talk to us about that journey and kind of what you've done. I mean, I know what you've done, but you're not, the only parent in Florida or in America with kids with Tourette's. But some people might not know about the resources or things that you've done. And I understand everyone's diagnosis is probably different. Everyone needs different therapies or different things to get them there. But if you could tell us a little bit about your journey, because I find it very inspirational what you've done, right? I have kids with different disabilities than yours, but yours is unique, and I'd love to hear about it.
So way back in 2012, our youngest was 2. He had turned 2.5, and he learned to crawl out of the crib, and that he was our only one who ever did. But with that, he totally quit sleeping. And initially...
Wait. So at 2.5, he crawled himself out of the crib and then was awake.
Yes.
A lot of awake.
And he had been sleeping all night, right? So this wasn't like an ongoing thing. He had been sleeping through the night, figured out how to crawl out of his crib, and we thought, okay, this is just going to be temporary, right? Ha, so fun. I'm going to stay up and whatever. But it didn't stop. And then so obviously got rid of the crib because that was dangerous at that point. So he would not sleep. So it would be 10 o'clock at night and he's still awake. And then it would be 4:45 in the morning and he was up for the day. And he wouldn't nap. And so, initially we're like, man, this 2s and 3s are going to be rough, right? But then we started to realize that nothing that works for quote unquote typical children worked for him. And so as time went on, when he was 4, he started having tics, which was not on our radar because nobody at that point in our family had been diagnosed with tics or Tourette. And so he was in preschool and he, clearing his throat all the time. The teacher's like, well, stop it. Well, nobody knew, but I always say that was the first time that he was punished for having tics, because I think he didn't get his turn at those fancy little whiteboards because he was disrupting the classroom.
I know.
And I always give that teacher grace because I'm like, we didn't even know, right?
Right. You didn't know.
But then as time went on, as time went on, the tics got worse.
Okay.
They were very frequent, and he was super impulsive and hyperactive, and about that time, our 8-year-old started having tics as well, and we're like, what's going on with this stuff?
And that was your oldest?
Mm-hmm.
Your oldest and your third, 1 and 3.
Both boys.
Both boys.
1 and 3.
Got it.
So that began our long journey trying to get to the bottom of what was going on with both of them.
Can I ask what their tics looked like? And I'm asking because I think there's many different forms of it, and there might be someone out there watching this that, doesn't realize that what their child is doing are tics as opposed to like allergies.
Right.
Because I might assume that a child clearing their throat is because they like have postnasal drip.
Yeah. And that's what they initially, like, that's what the teacher thought. She's like, oh, it's spring,
Sure.
whatever.
I mean, absolutely. Like it happens to me in the spring, that you kind of, a whole bunch because it's, gross out there.
Right. It's all the things.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of, I want to say, like, initially it was the like eyes, and he'd shrug his shoulders. So I have all sorts of videos from the beginning, because you would video these to take them to the doctor, because you wanted to be like, this is what I see at home.
Okay.
So we would have that, and they make a lot of different vocalizations. Some were like higher pitched. Noah had this brutal shriek that was mortifying for him. But Will had one where he would like walk and drop down to the ground and stand back up, and we're like, what is he doing? But they were all these different kinds of
So that
tics.
was part of his tic, was he
he would take a couple steps, drop to the ground, get back up, take a couple steps, drop down, and we're like, what is going on?
So I'm going to assume that if you don't have anyone in your life with Tourette's, you assume all that's like a blink. Like that's what I would, or shrug your shoulders, or
there are lots of blinks.
A snappy thing, or I don't know. I never would have thought that it was walking and kneeling. So
and there's
very interesting
kids who have all sorts of tics, and some of them obviously are vocal. Everybody thinks swearing like is this big thing with Tourette, and it's not. It's a smaller portion of
like those outburst things.
That. Yeah, it's like 𝗥𝗲𝗚 is the swearing part. But there are people that have things that they just say. Like we've gone to Tourette conferences before, and that's just has to happen. Like a tic is like an itch. So if you don't itch, it's just going to drive you nuts. So it's like this urge, and then the tic happens.
I see.
And when you get a group of people with Tourette in a room, it makes it extremely difficult, because they'll often, like, tics are suggestible, so they kind of play off of each other.
Wow.
So when one of our boys is having like an uptick in what's going on, the other one is impacted and tries to kind of keep their space a little bit more, because otherwise it's like an echo chamber. It's back and forth and back and forth.
Okay.
But the thing that most people don't know about Tourette is that it's not just Tourette. There's going to be it's like the iceberg, all these things underneath that are associated with it. And that has been our greatest problem, is the ADHD and the anxiety and the OCD and all of the things that are underneath. So it's very hard as a parent to have children, and don't take this coming the wrong way, but people will be like, well, they look normal.
Oh, I get that.
And I'm like, okay, that's great. But when you see all the stuff that's going on underneath and all the stuff they're dealing with, that's why, because our youngest has a lot of behavioral challenges. And I'm always like, people, you can think we're terrible parents, but you have no idea what we've done.
Sure.
So I always say, don't judge, because you're not walking in our shoes, and I can assure you.
Well, I hate the word normal for kids or adults or whatever. I like the word standard, because that, I don't know, to me doesn't seem as judgy. Is that, you've got like your standard developing child with your standard whatever.
Yeah.
And then you've got the rest of us with kids that aren't developing like that. So, so your kids are homeschooled, because you felt that was the best.
We had a lot of
opportunity for them to learn.
It is the best opportunity for them to learn. And, the boys each had their own different things in school that were problematic. My oldest has massive social anxiety. So if you can imagine being in a junior high and screeching at the top of your lungs all the time in the middle of class.
Not going to go well.
Mortifying.
Yep.
And then our youngest, like I said, has a lot of behavioral challenges, and instead of supporting, the option was to punish, which got really out of control. So he's our first one we homeschooled. We pulled him out in first grade.
Got it.
And so we actually landed in Florida because we were in the Midwest, in this black hole of not a lot of medical help for this situation. Our doctor was in Kansas City. It was a 5.5 hour drive just to see a neurologist.
Wow, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
You drove like 5.5 hours to get medical help.
Yes. So we tried some of the big namers. We went to Mayo in Minnesota. We went to University of Iowa, which is very big children's. It's a very well-known place, but Tourette is not well understood by all medical people. We'll just leave it at that. So we moved down here. There's a Tourette Center of Excellence here in Gainesville. So that's kind of been who we've seen. We've had a few bumps in the road with that as well because of some transitions with our service providers. But when we were at the point where we were desperate and we needed a change.
Right.
Like the Iowa weather, you're in the house 6 months out of the year because it's freezing or it's
snow and it's not desirable.
It's not designed for active kids to be able to be active.
Right.
To the degree that they need to be.
Like a basement only gets you so far.
It does.
I mean, it is nice. Like, let's be honest.
Super nice.
It is nice. But, like 4 months in a row of basement
it just
play
gets old.
Is not amazing. And I'm going to guess that a big part of your decision to want to be an entrepreneur is to be available for your kids.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I mean, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but it just speaks volumes as to who you and Tony are. It's your husband, who you are as people, because Tony gave up a career and being an entrepreneur is scary.
It is scary.
Right. Being like the puppet master of not only your life, but you people that work for you, and so.
Right. They rely on us. Our crews rely on us. And, our family relies on us. We went from that consistent money we knew was coming in every month to hope it works.
Yeah.
That's kind of, we were like, guess we'll see.
Yeah. But I know that Tony was working his full-time job for a while.
Yep.
And so how many months ago or how long has it been that Tony's been able to be full-time
6.
with?
Yep. So he worked for the first 6 months and then he quit in April. So we've been going for 6 months.
That's awesome. It must be really great to have some extra support with the kids and with the business and to just have it be kind of what your dream is. And, I hope if someone out there is wanting to open up or be an entrepreneur, or especially if they're looking for extra support, you and I both feel that a franchise model is worth it because it costs money. I mean, right? Franchises are not free.
They're not free. Royalties aren't free. And that was, I think, the hardest in the beginning was the, every month, or for us, every Monday, I think it's changed now, the royalties would come out. And at first you're like, this really sucks. But then
that's my hard-earned money.
Right? But then as business for us picked up and we got more established here, the very first time we had like a big amount taken out, I was actually like, dang, that means we had a really good week. So it was kind of
changing your perspective.
Yep, changing your perspective, right? And I will say for us, our franchise model is we have an appointment center. There's a generic number for Jacksonville that goes to our appointment center.
So you don't manage that. You're not there like answering the phone. Hi, would you like to schedule an estimate?
Nope.
It's someone else.
Someone else handles that. Now, obviously, we take care of our local people where we run into referrals. Fine. It's not that we never schedule, but the majority of stuff people see off of our ads and such goes there.
That is priceless.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're paying for it in another way.
Right.
But you didn't have to find people. You don't have to teach them how to use a system. They're all interconnected into your business. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that really helps. And the other thing that helps with the franchise is they take care of the marketing. So all the social media ads, all of the Google ads, all that stuff, that's produced in Texas.
And you reap the benefit of it.
Yes. So they post all that. And I used to kind of dabble in my own little, like, I had my parent advocacy business and, you create your own stuff and that all takes a lot of time. Like there's no way around it. If you want it to look pretty, it's going to take some time. So they take care of that. And then we update our page with our projects that we're working on currently, right? So it might be like, oh, here's the before, here's Monday, here's our prep, here's this. And then on Friday, there might be a reel or a post about, okay, here's the after. So I don't have to spend all this time on social media, making sure
like on that creative part of it,
right.
which is really hard, right? You only have that one moment or whatever it is, 3 seconds or 2 milliseconds to capture someone's attention. And someone who just does marketing is doing that for you. Which
correct. And they're always troubleshooting, right?
So good.
Like, as you know, there's all the algorithms and all the things online.
And it's always changing. Just when I feel like we get a grip on it, there's something new update, whether Apple did or somebody else did, that changes how people see things.
Yep. And so that's taken care of. So those are like, I feel like if you're owning a business, those are 2 really big things that take a lot of your time. and those are off of our plate. So we can actually spend the time getting to know people locally and learning about other businesses and how we can be good referral partners to each other. And I'd much rather spend my time doing that than designing something on Canva that may or may not look good on
Like, you
Facebook.
think that's the worst when, like, you think it looks good, you're, like, so excited about your ad, and then no one watches it or clicks it, and you're just so defeated.
You're like, I just wasted an hour of my life.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you guys won an award.
We did.
Through your company.
We
so
did.
What did you guys win?
So we won the best franchise launch during the course of the last year in the business. So we worked really hard to make sure this thing got off the ground, and we've maintained what we've started and obviously built on it. But it is kind of like, I always laugh. My husband was in sales, right? Every year you have to go to his sales conference and leave me at home while he was being wined and dined somewhere.
Oh, now you get to do it.
Right? Now we got to go, and he has awards, but now I have one too. So it's on our shelf at home. I'm
Oh my God, I love it.
hey kids, we did that.
It's pretty cool.
So it is cool, and it gives you something to like strive for. Like, okay, we did this out of year one. Let's keep this going moving forward. And we're really competitive people just by nature. We were both athletes, like competition runs in our blood. And so we're always like checking. We use our corporate location kind of as a guide. It started in Austin. So we look at like, what was their year one? Okay, we want to beat that. What was their year two? We want to beat that. And so that's always in the forefront of our minds of like, where could we be? And the way we get there is by, being, we always say, the best home service out there with painting. Sure. And I feel like so far, you're not going to make everybody happy, but I found that the majority of the people who are unhappy with anything in life is that their expectations didn't actually match what reality is, right? So if you have a ceiling that has a crack in it, and we're going to go just like this, knock down ceiling, we're going to go in and fix that. It's never going to look like it did in the beginning. It's impossible to completely match.
No, you'd have to take the whole thing off and put a whole new one on. I mean, that's the only way.
And it takes a really long time that might look simple, but even trying to blend it as best as you can takes a long time. Well, if you think it's going to look perfect and it doesn't, your expectations didn't really match reality. So there's things like that. We have people here in Florida with all the cracks in the stucco, like going through and just like filling them and dabbling a little bit of paint. You're going to have like the zebra looking houses because everything fades here. I don't care if you painted it last year. It's going to be lighter.
Oh, of course.
Right?
I just had this conversation with someone that they were like, oh, they're getting ready to sell. And they were like, hey, we still have the paint from when we bought the house 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Should we use it? I was like, no.
No.
They were like, why? It's the same color. I go, your walls aren't the same color.
Right. Nothing
anymore.
Is the same.
And they were like, I don't understand. We don't smoke in the house. I go, no. It's called the sun.
Right.
And over time, things fade. I said, so if you want to keep the walls the same color, you need to like take a paint chip and go get it matched. Because I guarantee you, because I had someone do that once, we came in for pictures. The homeowner's husband had painted the night before pictures. Please don't do that ever. Don't paint your home yourself the night before pictures. We called it the polka dot house.
Yeah, because you could see.
You know what happened, right? They took pictures down, because we do staging, blah, blah, blah. We had them declutter some stuff. And we got there and I was like, what happened to your wall? And they were, it was the old paint and it was the same color. But oddly, you couldn't really see it in the photos that much because of lighting and whatnot. But they then had to hire a painter to then have the walls painted because it was awful.
Yeah, we have had many people like that.
Who do home fixes?
Well, or they want to. That's like their plan. It's like, hey, I need you to paint this. I'm going to go through the rest of the house and we're like, you can't do that. Can't do that because this is our opinion on it. If you walk into a house, right?
Yes.
And you see, oh, there's a square there that's been painted and there's a square there that's been painted. To me, I'm thinking, okay, you're trying to do everything as cheaply as possible. What else is going on in this house?
Boom. That what else is the biggest one is I always tell sellers, if we can take the questions out of their mind before they walk in or as soon as they walk in, Buyers aren't going to be looking for what's wrong.
Right. You want somebody to walk in and be like, wow, this really looks amazing. And I always say your ROI on paint
is
amazing. And some will say, oh, we just want to give credits at closing. I'm like, well, you can pay twice as much at closing as it would cost you to just paint it now.
Sure.
Because if I'm walking in, I have no idea how much it's going to cost, right? I'm going to say, hey, I want $5,000 in credit because this whole house needs to be painted.
Right.
Whereas it might have only cost me $2,500 just to do it. Just don't leave money on the table.
Absolutely.
Get your house painted.
Yeah. So if someone wants to find you, what's your website?
We are That One Painter First Coast. So if you type that in, you'll find us.
Okay.
There's a lot of different That One painters, but we are First Coast here.
Awesome, which is amazing because that's the First Coast. Should be pretty easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
And on there, are there like pictures? If someone wants to kind of like check you out, what could they expect on the webpage to find?
So our webpage isn't going to show as much because that's run through corporate. If you want to look at some pictures, there's some on Google, but the best place to find that stuff is on Facebook or Instagram because we'll do reels and before and afters on there.
And what's your handle for those?
Probably That One Painter First Coast there too.
So when in doubt, That One Painter for First Coast is where to find all the information.
Yeah, that's going to be where it's at. I'd love to give you more specific.
No, that's simple. Like I'll take simple every single day.
Like dash, dot,
dash,
backslash.
2 1s in there, and then we'll only have 1 1 or whatever. It has this Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and the last thing I want to talk about is your area.
Right.
So it's Jacksonville, like Duval County, but it's bigger than that. So where else do you service?
It is. So we have St. Johns County, go into Clay County. We've been in Baker County. I don't even know all the counties, but we primarily service Jacksonville, St. Johns. We do a lot of work over in like Orange Park, Oakleaf. We do a lot of stuff over there. We can go south, like St. Augustine. We've had estimates in Palm Coast. We've done jobs out in Glen St. Mary and Hillard. So we kind of go everywhere.
So everywhere that we classify as Northeast Florida is where you guys service. Well, awesome. Definitely learned a lot. I so appreciate you coming out. It's so fun that we started off as real estate customers, friends, our kids hang out, and now fellow entrepreneurs. I so appreciate your time, Gina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.